Welcome to Teams Tuesday, a podcast about mastering the best about what other people have already figured out. Teams Tuesday focuses on insights and lessons that never expire. You will walk away from every episode with actionable insights that help you get better results and be more productive.
This was about as bizarre and easy as it gets.
The client just couldn't make up their mind.
I feel like we had top.
Went from a project of 20 weeks to just 2.
The DevOps was a cultural shift.
This is Teams Tuesday with your host, Peter Ward.
Hi, welcome to Teams Tuesday. My name is Peter Ward and I'm the host. And we've got a phenomenal guest. Well, like all the guests, all very phenomenal. Matthew Bailey, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you today?
Doing very well, no doubt. I'm in New York and it's the heat wave is coming. I've installed the AC in my bedroom, so summer is officially here. You're based in the DC area, that's right, isn't it? Am I correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Right, okay. And from what I remember, like you're into music, self-improvement and travel. So where was the last country you visited?
Well, actually, the last place I visited was New York. It's my favorite city, and as you know, I'm coming up for your community event in July to speak at that as well. So I am excited to go there.
Yes, indeed. It's good to see you on that. Okay, so you're a Microsoft trainer, okay, and I know you're also doing the technical project management of deploying large SharePoint projects. So you've been using SharePoint. What was your first, for not almost like hitting 15 years, what was your first version of SharePoint?
2007 was when I started working with it. Yep.
So you like you know how to deploy WSPs to the GAC?
Things like that. Yeah, it was a desperate attempt to migrate everything off of Lotus Notes before it died into SharePoint, as everyone has experienced, I'm sure.
Right. So. Okay. Yes, you got the war stories on that front. Okay. Very cool. So obviously, your talk basically, you know, it's all about AI training. Okay, and Microsoft is all about Copilot, and that's really what you're talking about. So your session is really about, is titled What We've Learned About Deploying Copilot. So how many deployments of Copilot have you done?
So I'm on a major one now, but additionally on side things I've done, I've been involved with two as a consulting advisory, one for a law firm and one for a separate financial institution. So they've had different roles, but I've learned a lot of lessons in the past 9 months by doing this. So
right. Okay, then. So with that being said, and with that introduction, it's over to you.
I appreciate that. So I'm just going to quickly, let me share my screen for everybody. Just basically, as we said, we're going to just recover some of the things that I've learned by doing deployments with Copilot in the real world versus what is it that you experience through like a Microsoft marketing video, which of course is very different. Once again, real quick, just about me and some of the experience I had. I'm a former Microsoft MVP, but still a Microsoft trainer and have some other certifications. Here's my LinkedIn. I'm also the author of a couple of books, including the SharePoint Business Analyst Guide for a few years old. So today I wanted to go over what are some of the important things that you may encounter deploying Copilot to a organization that specifically has regulatory or compliance needs that Copilot have to be given the green light before it would be able to be deployed. So here I've just kind of gone into some of the things that people are looking for from different areas within a large org. Maybe it's legal or HR or a security team, of what questions do they need to have answered before you could migrate it. Additionally, ensuring how the content that you have in the Microsoft Cloud, what have you done to manage it or secure it or remove content that shouldn't have been exposed to Copilot in your entire organization. I'm going to quickly go over some of the things that are, in my opinion, would be included in a successful Copilot rollout, which means training, adoption, resources, and other plans to make sure users are getting the most out of it and that it ends up being a successful deployment. Last, just a couple of random feedback from users that I've seen and the things that they've had to say about Copilot. And then just last, some commentary that I've seen in the world about what people are saying about Copilot. Some think it's great. Some have done demos and perhaps found value for some of their users and were willing to buy it. And then, of course, others may have just said it's not quite there for them at the moment. So right. I'll jump in first because I have a lot of slides here to try to cover. So before you deploy Copilot, so these all of the places that I've been involved with Copilot, this question seemed like just kept coming back. So the first one, which is the most important with any AI model, is any of the data that you have leaving your tenant in any way that could be considered a security risk, or somehow that it might find it into the large language models that Microsoft have to use your data to start training with, which nobody would want, of course, because then you're giving away your free proprietary information to the general public. So one of the things, and I'm going to show you in the next slide, I have a diagram that I did learn. Most of the marketing or things on Microsoft's website tell you that the data never leaves your particular tenant. However, there is slightly something that's not correct about that. For a brief moment between when you've typed your prompt and it being sent to the large language model and then being sent back, it is leaving your tenant, but it's not leaving Microsoft's data center or its network. So it's just a clarification of everyone I've spoken with still feels it's secure, but it does need to be understood that for a brief moment between your tenant and Microsoft's large language model tenant, there is some interaction which is not kept on a permanent basis.
Is that a security risk, Matthew?
I have not had anybody said that it was because of the fact it's still in Microsoft's lockdown world. I've not had anybody say that that was a deal killer to stop it.
Got it.
So, but it's just an important clarification that needs to be made, in my opinion. So next is, as far as is the data, or are we confident the data that's going to be ingested by Copilot and the semantic index, is it secured? Is there any potential risks we have? So this is going to depend on each org. I'll be honest, I've seen some places that have been very meticulous and careful about who's allowed to get into SharePoint sites and who's allowed to manage permissions. What are they allowed to share? What are they not allowed to share? And then I've seen other places that just didn't even have a process implemented, and there's countless things that shouldn't have been shared with everyone, and they are. So this is going to be something that each place that wants to do this is going to have to research by either running reports or using some of the tools that Microsoft has in their compliance center, which I'll show you briefly in a moment, so you can kind of gather your own assessment of, do we have a data security problem or not? Next, being asked to track behaviors and interactions with Copilot. So this was a little bit surprising to me because I didn't realize that there could be potential risks with what is it that you're saying, hey, Copilot, go do this. But I've, in more than one place that I've been at, I've had that's this question asked. So I can kind of quickly just kind of show some screenshots of how you can use the auditing tools and e-discovery and the Purview Compliance Center to acquire that information should anyone ask it of you. Next, the last one is, can Copilot work with data that's encrypted by Microsoft Purview? So yes, Copilot respects any sensitivity labels and encryption that you've applied to those files. However, I do want to make a note, because I've had this asked of me at different places as well. Are you able to selectively remove files from the Copilot index one by one? And at the moment, I don't believe that is possible. If, once again, you see what you have permission to, Copilot will see and mimic that behavior. So if you have permission to something, it's going to pull it into your index. It won't show it to anyone else who doesn't have permission, but it's just important to understand that. And then the last note is just that I'll show you some quick ways to manage the Copilot data from a site or a group or a level at a higher level, but as there's still, at the moment, I don't know anything where you can take things out one by one. All right, so next, most people have probably seen this because this is on Microsoft's website and they put it in all of their marketing brochures and everything.
I've seen that. I think every Microsoft slide presentation has that slide.
Has this one. No, I agree. I started counting. I was like, I saw 7 different things that had it. So, but this was just the note of best I can understand from what I had gotten clarification from Microsoft was between step 3 and 4, where the prompt is leaving your tenant to go to the large language model that's still in Microsoft's perimeter, but has left your tenant momentarily to get what it needs and send it back without keeping a copy of it. So this was just kind of what I was trying to explain from the comment that I had in the previous slide. Next, a lot of questions just from end users. In fact, I think it was actually the most popular question I would ever get from end users as soon as they were given Copilot and started working with it is, where's it getting its data? Because in many cases, there's a sudden concern of, wait a second, how did Copilot find this? Like, why does it know? So in most cases, depending on which Copilot you're using and from where within your tenant, there should be references kept. And I'm going to also go in a moment here to show you a different part of Copilot with web versus work. But if you've searched for something and you start to get results, anytime you see references here, you should understand that those are most likely files that are pulled from your tenant, and there should be the location of where they found those files, at least from your company here. From the web, you can see how it selectively broke these apart for me just so that there's a clear understanding of which piece of data came from which location. Also, I'm going to go here real quick and I'm going to pull up my browser. So this is another question of where is Copilot getting my information from. So if you go to copilot.microsoft.com, you will immediately notice that as long as you're logged in with your work or school or business ID, like not your Matthew at Hotmail or Matthew at Outlook, but some type of business or school organization that has the Copilot licenses in it, you're going to get commercial data protection. So the behavior of this is a little different in the sense that if you select the work box, you're only going to be interacting with content from the web, but also from files inside your tenant. If you go to web, you will not be able to get any commingled results where it may have taken some info from files and some from the internet. So that's just an important understanding of which one you choose. You're going to get different results based on that. So I can quickly show you real quick here, get my Copilot going up just once again with work. Here I'm logged in with the MyBiz tenant and my own personal tenant. And anything that I do here is going to be a combination of the two. So write a business requirements document. And sometimes the keywords that you choose, though, also are going to affect the results that are come back. So I have some sample business requirement documents in here. See if it finds any of them. Actually, I'm gonna base this on. I should have used probably a more specific reference on the first one there. Okay, so let me just make sure that this one came back. Okay, so this one, do you see how this actually pulled specifically from a document in my tenant that it is scanned? So that's a little bit different. The thing about this is just that I didn't specify which document. You notice all I said was my SharePoint requirements document, and it was smart enough to go search all of the things I've had on past consultants projects over the years that anything had to do with SharePoint and requirements, and it pulled it and grouped it together. So that's just the difference versus if I come over here and I was to type sign something on my SharePoint document, it's not going to be able to do it because I'm on the web only tab of this. So it's just some clarification because even in the beginning, I was a bit unsure of like, where's this pulling from which area? So. All right, next, user statistics and auditing. As I mentioned, there will potentially be requests from people inside your organizations and that may be asking, can we track what's happening? What's going on with either are users actually even opening Copilot every day and using it in Outlook or Word or Teams, or did somebody get a license and then they haven't even typed anything into Copilot for a month and you're like, well, that might not be a good person to pay for a Copilot license for if they're not going to use it. And then additionally, just from a risk or security or compliance perspective, what are the things people are typing in to make sure they're tracked in case something not good happens down the road from who knows what, because AI is so new, we have no idea what all of the risks are going to be yet, but it's good to at least have factual information to back yourself up with it. So Viva Insights is, as you know, it's a part of the Viva suite. It does a lot more than just give you statistics on Copilot, but there are some free things with the Copilot dashboard insights as far as in what app, who has done how many actions within it, so that you could get some plausible results. You have to go into your admin center to set this up. And additionally, you have to give the specific people that you want to be able to see the Copilot report. You have to type their name in here so that then they can go to load them. So I was going to show you the Copilot dashboard, but in true Microsoft demo curse reality, I was over here earlier going like, hey, I'm going to show you this. I've got it set up in my tenant, and it just keeps spinning. So I'm going to go back to a screenshot here, just so you can get a general idea of like what kinds of things should I expect from as far as the interactions and use of Copilot from the users inside the org. And then additionally, if you pay for a premium, because this is free, that there's also a premium Viva Insights license. And then if you pay that per user, you'd be able to see a few additional reports on the adoption and impact. I think it just matters how important it is that you know to a granular level, people are really using this. And now, yes, we're going to pay $30 a month per person for a license for the long term so that they'll continue to use it over time.
Makes sense.
Yep. Next, Copilot in auditing and purview. So most people have auditing enabled already. I can't say I've found any tenants that I've worked at that didn't. But if you are a compliance admin in Microsoft Purview, in your auditing results, you can find out at least basics of who has interacted with Copilot. So here you can see myself. I would just come in here and I would type Copilot interactions, and I'd type my name over here. And then it takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how much content you're trying to search through to see like what are the interactions here. So you can see over the past few days, I had many interactions with it. The only thing I'm not certain of was at one point, I thought at least for some of these actions, you could see the particular prompt that was being tracked. And I don't know if this is still here or if it's only accessible if you buy a premium eDiscovery license. I don't have premium eDiscovery in my test tenant here set up, so that isn't something I can show you, but I think it's important to just, let people know, depending on how strict regulations or compliance standards are at your organization, you're going to have to decide which of these is good enough for you. So I'll come back down. We'll go on to the next thing here. I'm going to go into my next topic, which is kind of about just managing the Copilot index. As I mentioned, it depends all on your org of how many people properly secured their data in SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business, or if they didn't. So some of the things I've seen people do is before they even get Copilot ready, they're like, hey, let's do some reports on what kind of data is shared to how many people throughout your org first. One place had written a very huge PowerShell script that searched through everything and gave reports, but I've also seen some things inside the Purview Compliance Hub and a other third-party software that will do this for you as well. So as an example with the Purview Compliance Hub, what you could do is over here, let me go back to my AI Hub, if I can just find it real quick. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry. Okay, so here's your AI Hub. This is a new menu item that's just kind of compiling things from different areas. And I think they're going to continue to build out on this. But one of the things that is important is here right off the bat, protect sensitive data with Copilot. So you can see some of the things that I had worked on in my past that we had things that perhaps had sensitive information in them, but I don't have labels on them. But once again, this is just a test tenant. So it's anything I've typed is more like a pretend social security number to see how it would work. But if you have the AI Hub inside your Purview, I would highly suggest you go, because there may be a huge epiphany of, wow, there's 6,000 files with sensitive or personal information on it that have everyone in the org or even anyone outside the org links shared on them. So these are the kinds of things where you'd be like, oh, wow, we may have a problem. We're going to have to address this, right? So next on that, one of the things that Microsoft has recently announced, I think it was a few months ago, is they've created a way for restricted SharePoint search that in case you realize we've got a really messy situation going on with our SharePoint content permissions, but we don't want to have to wait 9 months before we can even start using Copilot, you could intentionally only include certain things you want, and then start with Copilot and slowly fix all of your data and slowly add it in. The only downside to this concept is it has a 100 site limit to how many sites you can add to the Copilot index, and it's not a everything exclude, it's a only include, everything else is excluded concept. So other things that may are kind of like quick, easy fixes, if that's something you want to do, you could go into specific libraries or sites in SharePoint and just completely unindex the libraries or the site, which will immediately remove it from all Copilot indexes. I shouldn't say immediately, but it's pretty quick. You could also, if needed, find if something's been poorly shared and you just want to get rid of everyone's permissions except for a couple of admins until you can fix it. That's another kind of kludge that, but it would work. And then last here, we've got some with SharePoint Advanced Management, they're starting to offer things with SharePoint link sharing. So you could get link sharing reports on a site that's and say like how many of these things are shared with everyone in the org so that you could try to go into fix your permissions at that level. SharePoint Advanced Management, of course, is an extra fee. So then this was something I brought up before. It's that you can't remove, that I know of, there's no way to remove files from the Copilot index on a file by file basis. It has to be done with these other tools. So I'll come back down here. I had showed you the AI Hub before. I was just kind of mentioning that this is a quick way to see, hey, do we have some data that we might be in trouble with? And then over here, you can see that there's also some other things called communication compliance policies that they've pre-created for you. What those do is that they just type the words that you're communicating to others or to Copilot that may have risk associated with them, like find me internal auditing documents from a law firm. And if somebody's typing that and they work in customer service, you might think, that I don't know if that person should be doing that, but it's tracking those types of behaviors if somebody is willing to read them. All right, so go back here because I'm trying to chug along as fast as I can because I know I have a lot of content. Feedback, so these are just some of the things over the last 9 months at all of the places or people I've met and talked about Copilot. What were some of the things that jumped out? So feedback. People kind of like PowerPoint to start, but when it came to granularly trying to fix things inside of Copilot, like half of a slide or slide 7 and 8, it became a bit more difficult to do. So one of the things that I've including myself, because as I mentioned, I'm a part-time Microsoft certified trainer, and I was creating an M365 training deck for something I'm doing in July. And for me to just open up PowerPoint and then just, say, go create me this presentation on it, and it would create like 40 different slides on Power Apps, Power Automate, SharePoint Online. It's a great way to get yourself going, get the juices flowing, give yourself some visual ideas, and then work on it to refine versus starting completely from scratch in a blank PowerPoint where you have nothing. I found that's a lot harder and takes a lot more time to get things done. Copilot with gender recognition. This was just another quirky little comment that I realized. Sometimes Copilot may refer to people as the wrong gender. And if you start to inquire about it, it's very polite and friendly. I know in America, some people are really like not so keen on people having different gender identities, and some people don't care, just want people to be happy. Copilot seems to be favoring on be respectful, let people be the identity that they want. And when you start to ask about specifics, it actually kind of intentionally pushes you away from it. Copilot can't find certain items in Outlook. That's a common thing that I've heard. Prompts and wording are very specific to get to the function. I've been told, meaning you may have to keep rewording your prompts, like twisting words around or using different words inside of it to get things to work. It doesn't seem to be able to sort dates chronologically yet. It tries to do them alphabetically by the name of the day in the week. PowerPoint, using your template. One quick tip I realized is if you want to PowerPoint to create a presentation for you, but it's using your own theme or your colors and stuff, just start in PowerPoint first with your deck open. So in case this one would be using my nice purple stuff here, then go over and open Copilot and say start the presentation. Then it will use all of your theming so that you save time on having to redesign it. Another item here, been told it's great for generating ideas if your brain's just not, functioning as well as you hope for that day. If you can't find something in Copilot, like let's say you're really like that SharePoint requirement document from my government thing in 2017, and it can't find it for some reason, go find the document, copy the URL, and then say, create it from this, paste it, and then it solves that issue, just in case anyone comes across it. Some other random things here. People were just saying about if you can find things that you couldn't remember who sent it or all of the details. It usually can find things if you give it a general summary. As mentioned before, changing the words around will affect your results. And then the one thing I've kind of noticed across the board is chains of emails for summaries. If people didn't reply in the same order with the same version of it, like one person replied, then 3 people more did, but then the other person went back to the one from 20 minutes before the other 3 people did, sometimes your summaries are going to come across as incorrect. So another thing here, some of the popular uses of Copilot at first, because everybody's like, what is Copilot? What can it do? And for a while, I was just kind of jumping into my presentations for people and showing them, hey, look at it can do this, look, it can do this. But then I realized that wasn't really the best, most intelligent way or most helpful way to explain to people what is Copilot. So then I was like, you know what, why don't you tell me what are all of your problems that you have working with the Microsoft Cloud in M365? Then when you start to get to things of, preparing for a meeting quickly from one place based on a bunch of things that's happened, that's a problem. How could Copilot help me save me with that? So then after I understood it, then I tried to figure out what are some of the prompts you could use that would meet this use case or solve this challenge for the user. So here's another one too for preparing for a meeting quickly. You can create an agenda from a chat from the last 7 days. In my test tenant with my little pretend people that I have licenses for, I'm going to go into my Teams chat. So here's a great example with one of my pretend people. I've been going back and forth about possibly deploying Copilot. And then if I wanted to create a meeting agenda from this chat quickly, I could just type in, and it's going to read through my chats that I've had with that person about what we've been talking with, and then generate what it is for the meeting we would like to do it. I could just paste this right into a Teams meeting and send it off to Chris, and I've saved a lot of time just in that tiny little interaction. So I thought that was really neat. So that's just a couple of things. There's a lot more things that you can do with Copilot, of course, but for the sake of time, I didn't add like 100 different prompts in my slide deck. That'd probably be a different session altogether. And then second to last, sorry about that. So what are some of the things that people had planned or decided to do with their Copilot rollouts because they want it to be as successful as possible. They want people to get as most out of it as they can, and they want to try to encourage that self-service, help you find answers to your own problems if you need to concept. So some of the things that I've seen people do in their rollouts is just making sure that you're very prepared. Making sure you have enough licenses, or for the people that you're going to assign the licenses to, that you're including a wide array of people's job functions or people that use M365 a lot. If you're somebody that works at like Walmart, sure, they have Teams, but do any of their cashiers really need Copilot? Would they ever even use it, right? Anyone at the store level, but the store manager who maybe has to send reports and meet on things, they may use it, or people in IT or the secretaries or legal assistants. Those would be the kinds of people you want to broadly deploy your licenses to get so that you get all sorts of different feedback of who found it valuable and how much time did it save per task, so that hopefully you could kind of balance, versus time saved versus hourly rate. What kind of a cost savings did Copilot actually just provide for you? Next, things like training videos. Maybe you're going to have some brown bag sessions where you have an instructor who's going to walk through all the things you can do with Copilot, self-led courses. There's a lot of free things out on Microsoft Learn where you can teach yourself and walk step by step with learning Copilot, sharing tips. Another great idea, I think, is called having a center of excellence, which is basically just create a SharePoint online site. And in that SharePoint online site, you could add links to important information or frequently asked questions. Who are your contacts if you're having problems with Copilot that you want to, reach out to? All sorts of other things Microsoft has with sample prompts and even a place to submit feedback that you might be tracking. Last, for adoption, creating a team to share your thoughts and questions, their tips, reminders, and other tracking user activity from the admin center. This is once again back to that Viva Insights type of reporting that's there. There also is actually from the main Copilot page in your admin center as well. Sorry about that. I need the admin center here. There's a little bit of information that is separate from that just in your Copilot section as well. If you don't have Viva Insights set up yet, it's very limited though. And then let me see here. And then last, analysis, having a form where users can, as I mentioned, share their time saving and the cost calculation of if they felt that Copilot was actually providing value that was saving hours, and thus would save time needing to be paid to employees or other software that could be potentially deprecated by having a task from Copilot do it instead. So this is last piece I just wanted to go into. There were a couple random things over the past year that I've seen in the news. So I've had, like I said, I've seen mixed feedback on this. One of the biggest things I found to be so interesting though was there was a CNBC roundtable where they reached out to several CTOs at large organizations to get their feedback on what was going on with Copilot. Microsoft does not share how many paid Copilot licenses they have on a monthly basis from users. So people have kind of had to try to figure out how successful has this or hasn't it been for Microsoft. They had said that many of the people, the CTOs, had some of the same feedback, which is they liked it for team meetings, summaries, and meeting recaps. There was limited functionality from some of the apps. It was great for ideas, but it wasn't quite there in Outlook, and they weren't sure if they thought it was valuable enough to deploy Copilot org-wide. And the number one thing was just that it's expensive. And people were saying, wow, to buy this $30 a month per person when you have thousands of users, that's a lot of a commitment. Now, on the other side of that, I have spoken to somebody who was at an entertainment company who just purchased 5,000 licenses. Another place at a different financial organization said that they felt it was so valuable that all 8,000 employees at the entire org were getting Copilot licenses. So I really think it varies. I think there's some common thoughts of what people feel the value in Copilot is, but when it comes down to, are we going to put our money down to buy it? It's just, I've seen different things from different places so far. And that's why going through everything I just showed you is important so that you can come to your own conclusion of whether or not you think your org should pay for these licenses or not.
Question came in, educational discounts. I'm assuming that applies to like all Microsoft licenses. It applies to Copilot, correct? Do you know that question?
I don't have the answer
to that question.
I wish I did. You're definitely going to have to reach out to your Microsoft rep on that one. I want to say I heard a rumor initially that there was no one getting any discount for any Copilot licenses because the demand was so high. I have no idea if that is still applicable though, because it's been a year since that rumor I had heard was going around. And I also don't understand the nuances between your education pricing versus like a private organization or a government organization.
Right, okay, I see. Copilot and GitHub. You want to talk about more about that?
So I do not have too much feedback on that one for you. That's definitely a coder thing.
Yeah, that's also basically another presentation topic, really. It's not
and a separate license. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. There's a lot of flavors of that. Yes.
There's a lot of information out there, though. If it's something that's important to you, it's more about suggesting code. Same thing for Power Apps and Power Automate, which I will say I found interesting. I had no Copilot license and in the beginning, and Copilot showed up in Power Automate and Power Apps for free and was starting to provide feedback. So there's just even an inconsistency of what do you have to pay for and what do you get from which app that you're in.
Right. Yeah. Very, very cool. I have to say a lot. Yeah. Copilot is very rock and roll. All of our clients are actually asking about this. Okay. And I definitely think Microsoft's definitely on for a winner here. Actually, I know AWS and Salesforce have got their AI machines, but Copilot is definitely been well thought out actually on that front. In terms of what's next for you in terms of the SharePoint world, are you going to become like a Copilot extraordinaire?
Well, I think all of us people that do that speaking thing in the events, I think we all have to become a Copilot something to
Right.
to keep doing that. So, but it's
For
cool.
those-
I enjoy it. So.
For those who are asking, I've just put Matthew's URL or actually LinkedIn into the chat. Feel free to hit him up on questions or on that. And you actually do freelance training, don't you, as well?
Yep. I'm a certified Microsoft certified trainer, and a few times a year people ask me to just come do like a 2 or 3 day course on something specific, and I love doing that. It's fun to teach. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right then. So thank you, Matthew, and I look forward to seeing you next month at the Microsoft event.
Yep. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it too.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Okay. You too. See you soon.
Bye.
Okay. Alrighty. Bye bye.